Welcome back to Trees and Utilities. We're live here on the floor. Tim Walsh, Vice President of Safety and Training for Townsend Company, LLC. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we've been meaning to do this for some time, so we finally made it happen. But appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Exciting to be with you both and to be here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to watch as Trees and Utilities grows and grows and grows.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't this amazing? So in year one, I think we had 350 people and over 1,500 just
Was
a few years
that's
later.
the final number?
I don't know the number right now.
I know we were over
Last
1,200
I heard,
for
maybe
sure.
It was
Yeah.
1,200.
Wow.
I mean, regardless, I mean, this is my third year attending this conference, and I was telling Phil, I think it's one of the best conferences in terms of industry type of things I've seen, not coming from this industry in particular, but people are very engaged. Tim, you as a past president and someone actually rolling off as one of the directors now, would love to get your perspective on the industry, how this conference has grown. What would you like to continue to see? Maybe some wisdom for our incoming president, Matt Goff. Give us your perspective.
Again, exciting times, and like you said, this is kind of the event. If you're in the UVM space, you have to be here.
Yep.
Just full stop. And I've invited a couple of folks, some vendors of different services that I knew through the years, different meetings. I said, you have to be here, and so kind of open their eyes to things. So, just watching it grow is exciting. As it grows, as we grow, it gets more professional. Your advice to Matt coming in, other than be careful where you run. Just stay engaged with people. I was on the board I did a run as director, and then I did the 4-year cycle through the presidency. And I felt as I was leaving the board, it was the best connection I had with a group at that level. Feel like we really kind of clicked. Everyone kind of knew their roles, and so it's been a great group. And I'll miss it. I mean, I rolled off the board in August, and I'm introduced myself as a former president now.
Yeah.
So you were at it 8 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. That is incredible.
Goes by like that.
It goes by like that, yeah.
I'll stay active on the safety committee and probably other things and speak at events and things. But it's a great organization, and just this meeting is amazing.
Well, talk to us a little bit about your role, right? As a senior leader, somebody that completely focuses around safety and training. Let's take safety a little bit. It's always a very complicated topic. It's obviously a very sensitive topic, right? Because we're talking about people and ensuring that there's good practices and everyone's doing things the right way. But, how do you feel like the industry has evolved from a safety perspective? And do you think the industry is on the right track?
It's so interesting. And in plugging my talk later today on safety differently, the way we view safety has changed in the 36 years I've been around. That, when we started, really safety was just not getting hurt. As long as nobody got hurt, you were safe. And then we realized that that's not an accurate assessment, because you might have just been lucky.
Yep.
Or you might have got hurt, you didn't tell anyone, so you hit it. So we're changing how we view safety. This starts with OSHA. OSHA sets the standards, obviously, physically, literally. But the sort of the cultural piece. So they hold up this number, the TRI, or the total recordable injury rate, as the be all end all, and it really isn't. It's just a number, and it's rearward looking, and it has no predictability. And so we used to, we still do it to some extent. We rate companies on that number, and we think if you have this number this year, it's going to be better next year.
Right.
And there's no connection. And Dr. Matt Hollowell did research on this using 3.26 trillion with a T FTE hours to see, is there any predictability with that number? None. And he was quoted as saying, the only thing more random than random is TRIR. So we used to focus on this number, and we were missing things. We weren't really learning. We weren't getting any better.
Right.
Now, injuries were coming down, recorded injuries were coming down, but the fatality rate hadn't changed.
Okay.
And so we're shifting what we focus on, and really looking at SIF, serious injuries and fatalities. That's what we're trying to prevent. Nobody wants a twisted ankle or poison ivy or single stitch, but people falling out of trees, getting hit by vehicles, electrical shock, that's the stuff we're trying to do. So this change in safety philosophy is allowing us to focus on those aspects and not just a number to keep OSHA or a client happy.
Now, for this to work, right, there's multiple stakeholders that have to buy in. Most importantly, the people doing the work, right? They've got to feel safe and can trust that hey, if we're transparent and we feed into this system, we're not going to be randomly penalized. That'll make the strategy implementable. So, how do you kind of get the buy-in from the people in the field to kind of break away from what they've historically experienced and say, okay, you know what? I think this is the right way to do it. You should buy in for X, Y, and Z. Like, how do you plan to make that cultural transformation? Not you specifically, but just how do you think that's going to? How does one? Tim's going to take it on for the world.
Well, it's interesting, Tej. The crew at the crew level, they already get it. They've always gotten it.
Right.
There's all of these, slogans and posters about, no injuries and zero and all of that. And while that feels good, the crews know it's not real.
Yeah.
You can't do this work without something's
going to happen.
And so telling people that we're not going to accept any injuries is really telling people to hide the injuries.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And so once we started this shift, at the crew level, they got it. And they've challenged us to get a little bit better. And I actually had a crew once, it was post-injury, had a climber fall out of a tree, was seriously injured, and sort of typical response, kind of the smoke jumper thing. The client's angry, so I jump out of plane and I fly to talk to everyone and talking to the crews. And they said, we only see you when something bad happens. I didn't have a response to that. I said, well, that's true, but that's not how it should be. We shouldn't, as safety professionals, we shouldn't just be out trying to fix things.
Right.
And really the new view on safety or safety differently, it's creating situations for good things to happen, not preventing bad things. So it's making sure we've trained people. We've given them the right equipment. We've supported them. We're not chasing them down the line. You've got to get X number of spans done a day. So at the crew level, that was easy. Now, I'll jump to the other side.
Yeah.
The highest level, at the executive level of the investor-owned utilities and the bigger contractors, they're getting it.
Yeah.
A lot of us are members of the Edison Electric Institute. Matt Hallowell, Todd Conklin, all of that stuff is being talked about at the highest level. So at the executive level, they're hearing that message. But as you filter down through organizations, that message might not make it all the way down to the
It's a little diluted,
level. And part of it is, like I said, OSHA is holding us to this standard. The client is holding us to that TRIR number. But we're seeing probably a small handful of investor-owned utilities are now saying, TRIR does not have any value. We're not going to judge you based on that. We're going to look for something else.
Yeah.
So, within an organization, you might have, a COO that absolutely gets it. You might have a manager that doesn't, and you might have a GF that gets it.
Yeah.
And so part of this is we're trying to make sure we're communicating, vertically through all the organizations.
Do you use UAA as the forum to bring people together to discuss these issues, or are there other forums that you're championing or a part of within the industry that allow you to kind of take this voice, these ideas, this thoughtfulness, and have it permeate throughout the industry?
The UAA has been the primary, in part because I was president and all of that, and with the safety summits, which is after this, the UAA Safety Summit is probably the single best event for a field level person.
Right.
And I've been speaking at those for the last couple of years on the safety differently topic. So primarily it's been UAA, but the message is getting out. It was at the ISA 100, gave the same message. It was somewhat tailored, but it was the next 100 years of safety.
Yep.
And I wove some of that in. I'm speaking at TCA Expo this year on this topic.
Got it.
So UA's been my focus because that's where I've been, but the message is getting out to other places as well.
Oh, very good.
You've also been engaged in the Z133 Committee. When's the last time that was updated? Is there another revision in the works?
The 2025 standard is actually going to be printed in November. We're on a 5-year cycle, but COVID set us back. So initially we thought it was going to be done in 2022. So it ended up, it'll be printed in 2024, but we're putting a 2025 date on it because that helps us. We normally have a 5-year cycle. If we call it a 2024, everyone's going to expect a new one in 29. So we're buying ourselves a little bit of cushion there. But I've been involved with it since the end of the 2001 revision. So whatever the math works out, 5 or 6 revisions. And I will probably be involved with all of them. As long as I can get to the room, I'll be involved with that.
The last revision was a little bit more challenging than most, right? The changes that were made.
So yes, so 2 challenges. One, COVID made it difficult. Doing things virtually we thought was functional, but it wasn't super efficient. But some pretty significant changes. And My other talk on Thursday is about some of the key changes. But specifically as it relates to the folks in this room, Section 4, the electrical hazards, went through a major overhaul. So backing up in 2012, there were 2 classifications for electrical qualifications. You were either unqualified or you were qualified as a line clearance tree trimmer. That was it, 2 categories. 2017, we brought in a new category, incidental, meaning you're working near the power line, but you're not being paid by the utility. And that language has been in the federal standards, subpart S, for decades. We finally called that out. It confused everybody. Nobody understood that. So in 2025, it's going to sound more confusing, but there's 4 categories.
Okay.
But it actually makes more sense. So we have an unqualified, which means you still have to train people about the hazard, but you're not qualified to work in a tree, near a tree. We joke and say, you shouldn't look at a tree that has a power line near it.
Right.
Then the next 2 levels, 2 and 3, are actually the old incidental, but we drew a line between low voltage and high voltage, mirroring the California standards. So low voltage primarily is anything from the transformer to the house. So a service drop, secondary voltage. So there's risks, there's fatalities in that, but it's a different risk. So a level 2 is you're trained to work around that hazard. Then the level 3 is, again, you're not being paid by the utility, but you can work near primary voltages up to, but not including 35 kV. We just do the line that above 35, I mean, you're getting into sub-transmission voltages. Yeah. That's a different level, and we don't want people around that. And then level 4 is the old qualified line clearance arborist.
So that is simpler. It sounds more complicated.
It does, and we went through many discussions around this. But I think when people see it in writing, see the charts, it makes sense. It really does. And back to the 2017 revision, people were really confused and almost angry about that. But the federal standard allowed for that. And the weird piece is, if you look at the MAD table in subpart S, it would have allowed somebody who wasn't a qualified line clearance arborist to work closer to the power lines than a qualified line clearance arborist.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So again, it gets confusing, and I'm probably making it sound worse than it is.
No, that's interesting.
So I do some expert witness, and it's real frequent that a private tree care worker probably not qualified or trained, but everybody can trim a tree if they have a chainsaw. How do you ever get the word out to that? It's not part of our industry, but they're affected by our industry. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's always been the struggle, and that's where all the organizations, UAA, TCA, ISA, we're all trying to get that message out. Because those people, the small companies, and that's where the bulk of the fatalities are in the industry. It's the 2 and 3 person company. Those people don't tend to come to this meeting, or ISA, or TCIA. They don't read any of the magazines. They probably don't listen to your podcast, unfortunately. And so that's the struggle. And so we've tried to do education campaigns for homeowners. So if you're going to hire somebody, here are some of the things that you need to ask the people that are going to do the work. And if they can't answer these basic questions, like what is a tree and do you have insurance, you shouldn't have them.
Yeah, that's good. That's actually very effective. How long have you been in your new role, actually, before we let you go today?
I started with Townsend on April 1st of this year.
Okay. And you were, prior to Townsend, you were with?
I've worked kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
One of the jokes we have, so yesterday we met the Utility Line Clearance Safety Partnership.
Yep.
It's the top, the biggest 14 line clearance contractors. We meet on safety compliance things.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, our view is we don't compete on safety.
Yeah.
So we share ideas. And so
that's great.
I've sat in that room wearing 4 different shirts.
Ah, okay.
Like many of us in this industry, we go from place to place.
Yep.
But I've been in the industry for 36 years, and Townsend, it's the right culture, it's the right fit, it's the right time.
Great. Congrats.
And a plug, I report to Amy Townsend, so 3rd generation family company.
Yep.
Great place, great culture, so super excited.
Well, congratulations on the new role. Thanks for carving out.
Best of luck.
Yeah, best of luck. Thank you for carving out time and
Thanks
talking
for
about
8 years of serving UAA.
Yeah.
I mean, I look around.
Yeah,
you did something right.
You're part of the you're part of the leadership community that will have a deep legacy. So again, congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Tim.
That's it for this episode of Trees and Lines, brought to you by Iapetus Holdings. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. If you have any questions or comments on any of our episodes or ideas for topics or guests, we'd love to hear from you. Please contact us at treesandlines@iapetusllc.com. We'll chat with you soon.